guys, it's Phoebe from Who's Phoebe and welcome back to another Doctor Who video. So, you guys have pretty much exceeded my limit on how many parts of a Doctor Who story I can tolerate, and for that reason I will not be reviewing the War Games. Run over. Welcome back to my channel. As you know, I am doing 24 days of Doctor Who where I review 24 classic Doctor Who stories from Patrick Troughton onwards, as I've already done a lot of the William Hartnell stuff. Now, I do apologise. The reason I'm not reviewing the War Games is because The Invasion, the story I'm reviewing, was 8 parts, and I sat through that and I'm like, yeah, I'm not watching a 10-part Doctor Who story. I will do the Croutons and I will do the Seeds of Death, and then I'm moving straight on to Spearhead from Space. I am not doing the War Games. I'll do the War Games for you guys at a later date. Couple of things. Number one, the Church on Ruby Road, the Christmas special that I will be reviewing, that will be the last review of 2023 before I move into the new year and do a bunch of brand new Doctor Who reviews. Number two, I've decided 24 days of Doctor Who is going to remain as a yearly Christmas countdown because I really like it and it's a lot more less time consuming than Vlogmas is, and to be honest, as good as I am at vlogging, I prefer sitting down in front of a camera somewhere comfy and talking about Doctor Who, if in all honesty. So yeah, so The Invasion. This is an 8-part story and it is so long, and unfortunately it takes so long to get to the Cybermen. So the Doctor doesn't know, so the TARDIS gets hit by a missile and then they have to do basically an emergency landing in a field of cows, which is an interesting way to go about it. Also, the TARDIS for the very first time turns invisible, as we have seen with the 11th Doctor, but this is the first time the TARDIS turns invisible. We also get to meet UNIT in this episode, in this story, which is very interesting. We met Colonel Lethbridge Stewart in the Web of Fear, and obviously UNIT hadn't been set up at that point, if you like. He was just a soldier with a team, if you like, sort of the best way to describe it. But this time we actually get to see kind of the start of UNIT, with the Colonel now being a Brigadier, and I think this is really intriguing because obviously this is the Cybermen. Now, The Invasion is a bit long, and personally I generally do think it is. There is episodes 1 and 4 are animated, so you really do have to concentrate on those because a lot of information is essential in those parts. You can usually skip the rest and get to episode 8 if you're like me and you can't sit through like a massive story like that, and that's exactly what I did. So the Cybermen are obviously going to drop this massive bomb, which again is very, very bad. They've been taking people, and they took Zoe and Isabella, a photographer. But from photographing the Cybermen in action, she actually does go on to get a better job and be a freelance photographer that's going to be paid better and basically travel the world with a UNIT soldier. So it's basically a job at UNIT, really. She's going to be a UNIT photographer, which is a very, very interesting kind of way to go, if you like. And unfortunately, in part 5, you only just get to the Cybermen causing havoc, kind of end of episode 4, and for me that's the reason why I don't think that this will be a story I will ever go back and rewatch, just because it takes so long to get to this point. Because obviously in parts 1 to 4 it's a bit weird because there's all this mystery towards it, if you like. There's all this kind of build up, a missile hitting the TARDIS landing in a field full of cows, having to turn invisible and all of that. So there's a bit of mystery to it. Meeting UNIT, and then obviously you get the Doctor and Jamie going undercover, the Brigadier helping him out, promising to have UNIT backup. So the UNIT stuff is actually really interesting, and there's a lot of scenes throughout the entire 8-part story with UNIT. When the Doctor and Jamie get kidnapped, it's the Brigadier and his team who rescue them. So actually having Unit in the story does make up for some of the slower paced parts, if you like. So I think having Unit in there really does help with this, just because the pacing is a tad off, and I think Unit makes the story actually worth watching. Definitely give it a shout, but if you're like me and you can only sit through 6 parts Doctor Who stories, then honestly I don't blame you, because it can be quite tedious and these can go on for quite a long time, because you can usually get 2 episodes to watch within an hour, and because this is 8 stories, this is 4 hours of just sitting there watching. Also, because it's black and white, it doesn't help. If one day they decide to colorise the invasion and put it all together in one chunk, then yes, absolutely 100% I'll be there and I'll watch it. But unfortunately the black and white does actually knock this down to being quite such a boring story. It's not that boring when you get to part 5. As soon as you get to part 5, things build up, the Cybermen are on the march and all of that, so it begins to get interesting from that. But the fact that it takes so long to get to that point, sort of like, yeah, you've got like, oh yeah, you meet Unit in part 2, yeah, that's really fun, and you know, oh yeah, you meet Unit in part 2, the Doctor and Jamie go undercover, they've got Unit there, yeah, that's really interesting. That, to be fair, I will admit, 100% honestly, that does slightly make up for the pacing issues that we're having. I don't know what it is about this particular story, but the pacing seems to be off. Like, one minute you've got the TARDIS landing in a cow field, next minute you've got some really useless information that you don't actually particularly need, and it just makes absolutely no sense. Next minute you've got the Doctor and Jamie in this room with gas coming at them, and then suddenly you've got a truck outside with Unit and Unit wanting them. Why couldn't they just why did they have to do that with the gas? Why could they not literally just go in and fetch the Doctor and Jamie? Why did it have to be almost like an arrest situation? Also, it's interesting to know that Unit doesn't arrest people. You basically arrested the Doctor and Jamie and brought them to headquarters, and then you offered the Doctor a cup of tea and a biscuit, and I think, oh yeah, that's really, really good, so why do that? Why just not go in and say they're not under arrest and just bring them to headquarters and be straight up honest? There's no need to put them in, there's no need for them to walk into a room, you kind of use knockout gas, they come round and you bring them in. Like, I felt like that was very, very odd. I know Unit's secret and everything, but that was like another level. I like the Cybermen in this episode. Obviously, as we know, the Cybermen have evolved throughout the entirety of Doctor Who, and the Patrick Troughton Cybermen aren't exactly. Only problem is, Patrick Troughton has bumped into the Cybermen 4 times by this point, and quite frankly, I'm getting quite sick of seeing the Cybermen in all of his seasons. He had Cybermen in season 4, 5 and now this one. So this is his 4th encounter, because he had them twice in season 5, okay? And he had them again, and he had them on the moon base, okay? I love the Cybermen, don't get me wrong, but when they're overused like that for the same Doctor 4 times, it can get a bit boring. So for that reason, this story also, that is another reason why this story will get marked down, because the Cybermen were used too much in the Patrick Troughton era, I think. Personally, they weren't overused in the 5th Doctor era or anything like that. It was more the Daleks that were overused in the later years, but this to me just didn't sit right. I didn't really enjoy. I'm meant to enjoy the Cybermen. I'm meant to be a viewer and enjoy the Cybermen, and this is an honest, beautiful, 100% honest review, because I think I hold back in a lot of my reviews. This is the 4th time the Doctor has encountered the Cybermen. I'm really not a fan of this particular, I mean, I like the Cybermen, don't get me wrong, the design's solid, but the 2nd Doctor, 4th time, seriously Doctor Who, you're going to do that? Overall, this was a good story. Pacing's off, meeting Unit, really clever idea. Really happy about that, because that will go into, that'll help me when I start doing my Unit based stuff for the 3rd Doctor. So yeah, really enjoyed seeing your origins of unit and all of that. So yeah, that was really interesting, and that does make up for the pacing. However, because it is an 8-part story, the mark, and because obviously of the 2 animations, and also because this is the second Doctor's 4th encounter with the Cybermen, this is going to get a 6.5 out of 10 for me, just because I felt like it was really off. And as much as I enjoy the Cybermen, this is the second Doctor's 4th encounter, and I think they're personally being too overused. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you did, and make sure you hit the subscribe button down below, and also get a notification so I get notifications every single time I upload. Allons-y!